hate being a therapist! Ah! All day, I just have to listen to people complain about their stupid problems, and I just want to be like, shut up! Nobody cares! This is the only honest advice you're ever gonna get from a therapist. Get over it!
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Thomas Hughes. I am a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist here in Southern California, and today's topic is going to be about the video that I posted at the top of this episode. This post is from last week, actually, and it made a lot of waves because seeing a therapist talk like this is, for lack of a better term, it's very frowned upon. The funny thing is, it's a parody account. But let's assume it's not. Let's assume this isn't a joke and it isn't fake, because it is fake, okay? I took a deeper look at this guy's account, and it's actually a very good parody account. He's a very good content creator. You might want to check him out if you get a chance. Anyway, despite this being a parody, it is inadvertently true what he's saying. There are a lot of unhappy and burnt out therapists that actually might echo the same sentiments as this guy. I do think there are more happy people in the profession than there are unhappy people, but the fact remains, this is a tough gig. And I'm referring to talk therapists, I'm referring to psychiatrists. You know, there are many aspects that people just do not talk about. And they don't talk about it because when you do, you get judged, both by your own colleagues and by the people that might be potential patients. You know, you get called a bad therapist or a bad psychiatrist. You know, you get told you shouldn't be in this profession. This isn't for you. You know, this is why people don't go to therapy. You know, that's the type of stuff that you hear all the time. So people they just don't talk about it. They just bury it and don't mention it. I've been in the field going on 8 years. And I remember even before that, my understanding of therapy and psychiatry was formed by what I saw on TV, what I saw in movies. And let's face it, I mean, when you look at TV, when you look at movies and there's a psychological aspect to it, it makes things more intense. You know, it can make for great TV, it can make for great drama. In real life, though, it's not all glamorous. Once you get beyond the entertainment portrayals, mental health professionals in private practice get cheated out of money. They get cursed at, they get stalked, they get threatened, they get assaulted a lot. You know, especially if you're female, especially if you're an attractive female. People tend to develop relationships in their head that they try to take beyond a professional level. And I think this has been exacerbated because of how easy it is to get information about people online. I wouldn't say it's likely to happen to any of us, but it's not uncommon to hear about. I've worked in some pretty intense locations in my 8 years or so, and I've only been hit once. You know, by accident. It was nothing major, but I have seen and I've heard of plenty of other colleagues getting hit in a much more severe way than what I experienced. And aside from the physical damage that gets absorbed, it is psychologically damaging also. Just like how being assaulted would be for anyone else. Unlike most people though, if you work at a place as a mental health professional and you get hit, remember that's your job. And a lot of times you're expected to go back to work. Sometimes while the person that assaulted you is still there. Assaults and fear of physical assaults tend to be one of the biggest reasons why people don't go into psych. This is because you're dealing with people that don't always have control of themselves. You know, that sort of environment is oftentimes what you run into in training programs and medical school. And that's your first introduction to psych. And that can be a very jarring experience for a lot of people. The orange is all the states in the United States with I think it's a severe shortage.
Okay.
That's the states.
Yeah.
You look at the chart below that, that's the counties. You mentioned that earlier. In the red, all that red there is a county.
No caps.
With no caps.
Yep, that's the 70%.
That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. Unsurprising. I think that, frankly, medical schools do a piss poor job of getting people excited about psychiatry.
I was going to ask you about that.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
What is the reason for this?
So when I was there, the exposure to psychiatry you got was not good. You either went to the VA, which is like going to a penal institution, because it's what they typically call a psychiatric intensive care unit, like the inpatient wards at VA hospitals. And it's scary. You know, not so much for me at the time, but female colleagues, they would actually tell me about the dread they would feel working on the wards because the men were physically assaultive sometimes,
Yes.
verbally assaultive often. And you look around, there's no armed guard. It's just a bunch of staff members walking around in scrubs that are supposed to control these men who've all been trained martial arts, good with weapons, and plus they're not in full possession of their mental faculties. So it's a dangerous environment. So you get exposure to that, and I think that that's probably not something that would generate much interest in most people who've spent the great majority of their life studying really, really hard in order to perhaps have a more enjoyable existence after that.
Yeah.
So I don't think many people were really excited about the prospect of going to work at a place like that every day.
Historically, the pay is not on par with the emotional toll that's taken on, and also the physical risk that you're taking when you become a mental health professional. That lower pay is oftentimes dictated by and exacerbated by insurance companies. And for all the talk about how important mental health care is in 2023, there are many people out there who take insurance who don't feel like the numbers quite match up with the sentiment. Mental health professionals are subject to burnout, just like everyone else is, maybe even to a higher degree than the general population, just by virtue of the nature of our work. One thing that I can tell you about burnout is if you don't feel like you can say something about how you're struggling, burnout can spiral out of control in a very dangerous way for the person experiencing the burnout. This is important because when you look at the shortage of mental health professionals, it's not just about poor recruitment of new mental health professionals, therapists and psychiatrists. There are also issues with retaining them. Now, I've seen some numbers on this that have, admittedly been all over the place, but I think it's safe to say that over 50% of mental health professionals have experienced some form of burnout at least once in their career. About a quarter of therapists change jobs within a year or two, so there is a lot of turnover involved. Some of that has a lot to do with the dangerous work conditions and the pay not matching the amount of effort it takes to do the job properly. I'm going to repeat just one more time, just so I'm very clear with what I'm trying to say. I think most therapists, most psychiatrists are happy with their career choice. But I don't want people to forget that there are those out there that are struggling, okay? We are people too. We have bad days too. This video was a parody, but it's not an uncommon feeling that people actually have. This does not mean that you should be afraid to talk to your therapist because you're afraid of being a burden to them or that you're going to burn them out. We are indeed trained to manage our stress levels in ways that allow for us to be effective at work. But I'll repeat again, we are human too. So if you want to be supportive of your therapist or of your psychiatrist, the biggest thing that I can tell you to do is please respect boundaries that are set by your provider, whatever those boundaries may be. That likely means not going to their house, not calling their personal number unless they gave you permission to do so. Always refrain from personal attacks or becoming verbally aggressive. I know we're supposed to be able to handle that sort of stuff, but not everyone can handle getting cursed out in the same way. The last thing that I'll say about being supportive of mental health care professionals falls more into the political and economic realm, which may be out of scope for you as an individual and me as a provider. I think that the tone and the vibe and the decrease in stigma that we have witnessed and been a part of in 2023 has changed a lot in the past 20 years or so. But I can't say that the insurance reimbursement rates quite match the sentiment. But that may be a topic for another day. Okay, this started off as a joke or a parody, but I thought that I might be able to get something meaningful out of it. Again, you should check out this guy's account. I think he's pretty funny. But as far as the more serious aspects of this topic are concerned, I got nothing else. Tune in next time for the next video. Take care.